YouTube, it's Weird Paul. Back in 1982, when I was 11 years old, was when I first started getting interested in movies. There was no internet then, so the only way that I could find out about movies was to go look for books at the library. Two books I remember checking out back then were this one called Ape and this one called Robot. They were full of photos from all kinds of strange-sounding movies. After a few years went by, I got obsessed with music. So it wasn't until July 5th, 1990 that I went back to the library and checked them out again. By that time, I was watching several movies a day, sometimes. I noticed that these books were put out by a company called Bounty, and I later found out that they'd put out over a dozen of them, mostly in the year 1975. I bought my first two Bounty film books 25 years ago, on July 12th, 1993. I got them at a rummage sale for $0.25 each. Catastrophe, the end of the cinema, is all about disaster movies. Of course you have Titanic and the Towering Inferno, but it also includes monster movies with lots of destruction like Godzilla. One thing that surprised me was how these books always had drawings or photos of people wearing no clothes. The other book I found that day was Kung Fu, Cinema of Vengeance. This was one of the earliest Bounty film books from 1974, and I was amazed that a martial arts movie book had been published back then. Of course it features Bruce Lee, who had only died the year before. But there's also lots of info on Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest movies, plenty of Angela Mao, and even Christopher Lee makes an appearance.
The world shall hear from me again.
About 10 years went by, and I found myself back at my childhood library. They were having a book sale and selling off many of the books that I had read as a kid. Two of the many books that I bought that day were the same copies of Ape and Robot that I'd checked out over 20 years earlier. One thing I remembered from these copies is that someone had cut pictures and even parts of pages out of them. I still need to upgrade these. Ape, Monster of the Movies, has a 28-page chapter on King Kong, as you might expect. But it covers all kinds of ape movies, including, of course, the Planet of the Apes. When this book came out, the animated series was still on TV. Robot, the Mechanical Monster was a later entry from 1976 with some really awesome cover art. Famous movie robots like Robbie, the Colossus of New York, and alien robots are all here, but the book also includes some zombies, the Frankenstein monster, and even the incredible two-headed transplant. I knew there were other books because they advertised them on the back covers, so I started watching for them. I found Speed, Cinema of Motion at the used bookstore in 2005. This book features films with trains, planes, and automobiles, rockets, and of course, bikers. The next book that I found was in 2006 at the same used bookstore, Cinema of Mystery. This one is all about movies based on the stories of Edgar Allan Poe, The Black Cat, Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Raven, and many others. I found out that many of the books I didn't have were available cheaply on Amazon, so I started asking for them as Christmas gifts. I got The Seal of Dracula. It's very comprehensive, with British vampire movies, Italian vampire movies, Mexican vampire movies, Spanish vampire movies, cowboys, spacemen, and Nazi beasts, and even sex vampires. Ooh, how kinky. This is the only one of the series that includes a complete filmography in the back. I've seen nearly every one of these. Some of the books were also published as paperbacks, like 1974's Movie Fantastic, Beyond the Dream Machine. This book analyzes the myths that films are based on, and the dreams and fantasies that influence movies. Cut, the unseen cinema, promises to show us what was censored by film boards and studios, and in some cases what films were completely banned for sex and violence. Which brings us to Savage Cinema. It certainly has the most garish and gruesome cover. This book is about the history of violence in films, pirate movies, gangster movies, and on through Death Wish, Bonnie and Clyde, A Clockwork Orange, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And 1976's Zombie, the Living Dead, has plenty of pages devoted to early zombie movies, but only one small picture from Night of the Living Dead.
Are they slow moving, Chief?
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
I've managed to collect 11 Bounty film books now. There's no way to know how many they've published because there's no complete list and very little information online. But I have found 4 others that exist that I don't have yet. Freaks, Cinema of the Bizarre. Celluloid Rock, 20 years of movie rock. The House of Horror, the story of Hammer Films. And Italian Western, the opera of violence, surely the first ever published book on spaghetti westerns. Hopefully someday I'll get them, and any others that may turn up as well. I hope that you enjoyed seeing my Bounty film book collection, and if you did, don't forget to click on that like button down below. I'll see you soon with more memories. Thanks, YouTube.
The world shall hear from me again.